Today on CityCast Chicago, how will the federal spending bill impact SNAP receivers in Illinois? Plus, we're discussing proposed changes for Chicago firefighters, the push around who can and can't wear a mask, and celebrating the growing number of lightning bugs this summer. It's Friday, July 11th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I am joined by the Chicago Readers, Miko Caparel. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, we appreciate you making time. We've also got Block Club Chicago's Mac Lederman in the building. Mac, welcome, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Kobe. What do they say? A first-time caller, long-time listener? That's me. So thanks for having me.
Both of you are first-time guests, but I want you to know I am very grateful for the work that you do. I follow closely all of your reporting, and I'm so glad to finally have y'all on the podcast. Similar to our guests who are listening, if you are new to CityCast Chicago, welcome. We appreciate you making time. If this is your first episode, then maybe when you get some time today or this weekend, go back and dig through the crates. I'm not going to ask you to go through 4 years and 1,200 episodes. I'm going to ask you to maybe start with just the episodes from this week, where we started off on Monday talking about what will replace the soon-to-be demolished Damon silos and talked about our personal history with the silos. On Tuesday, we looked into some ongoing financial trouble with the Chicago public schools. We completely switched gears on Wednesday and talked about some of our favorite international restaurants that make us feel like we're getting outside of Chicago. And then yesterday, you know, I took my Cubs hating ass up to Wrigley to talk to fans because they are in the midst of a fantastic start to the season. I hated to do it, but I had to do it for y'all. And then today, as we do every single Friday, we bring in these amazing voices to look back on some of the biggest stories happening in their week. But first, I want to get y'all's contribution to an episode we did earlier this week. And that's when we talked about restaurants that make us feel like we're getting outside of the city, the state, maybe even the country. Miko, I'm gonna start with you. Is there a restaurant like that hits for you that comes to mind?
So I live in a neighborhood called Mayfair, which a lot of people are like, what is that? I don't know what that is. It's in the Northwest Side. It's kind of between like Jefferson Park and Albany Park. It's actually a very diverse neighborhood, and a lot of people from Asia, and specifically Southeast Asia. Very high Filipino population, but also a lot of like Korean and Japanese people. So my closest grocery store is Seafood City.
That was on our list. Yes, it was.
I'm a vegetarian, so I don't even eat seafood. And then, actually, fish kind of scare me, if I'm being totally honest. Like,
I hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. Whatever is happening in the ocean is none of my business, and you can stay there. But like, I just have the most delightful time whenever I go there. And because it is like my neighborhood grocer for me, it's like the closest one. Like, I've reoriented a lot of my cooking around like what's available there and then supplement it with like other grocery stores, which I think is like one of the beautiful things about like living in a neighborhood where like if your walkable grocery store is this, like orient your life around that. That is a form of sustainability, and that's also like a way that you get to know your neighbors. And like I just have a blast like trying new things or just like seeing what's there that like I'm not used to seeing. Like it's great. I love it.
I love that. Emmett and Louisa both hyped up Seafood City. They talked about how you can go. They will prepare your fish for you. They might even fry it for you. Mac, over to you. Same question. Is there a grocery store, a restaurant, a street vendor that kind of gives you those out of the city vibes?
So I'll tell you, Kobe, I'm not a fancy guy by any stretch of the word. I'll live off like a rotisserie chicken from the grocery store for a whole week. But if I'm getting real fancy, man, if the occasion is worth it, Le Bouchon in Bucktown, the French bistro, reminds me of the one day I spent walking around Paris when I was studying abroad way back when. Steak frites, they have this salmon crusted thing. I don't even know what it's called, but it's absolutely delicious. And I'd also like to give a shout out to my girlfriend's mom's kitchen in Chicago Lawn. She makes the best Mexican food, I think, in the entirety of the city of great Mexican food. So yeah, let's take a point of that, Kobe. I think maybe some of the best ethnic food we find might not be in restaurants or grocery stores, but in people's kitchens all around the city.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I'm glad that you shout out the local family holding it down. Like I said, every Friday we bring in these dope people, not just to get their restaurant suggestions, but also to talk about some of the biggest stories happening in and around our city. And our top story this morning concerns the spending and tax cut bill that Trump and congressional Republicans muscled through and signed last Friday. At close to 900 pages, the legislation is a sprawling collection of tax breaks for the wealthiest, rollbacks on clean energy initiatives, opens up more public land for drilling, provides hundreds of billions in funding for ICE and the military industrial complex, and massive cuts in Medicaid, which 71 million Americans rely on, and cuts to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, which roughly 40 million Americans rely on month to month. Mac, obviously there is so much more in this huge, ugly, cruel bill, but you really focused in on what cuts to some of those social safety net programs, particularly SNAP, could mean for hundreds of thousands in our city and state. What did you learn?
Yeah, man. Well, speaking of food, I think we should all, the three of us here, just be grateful for the fact that we have food on the table every night, pretty much, because that's not a given for a lot of people. And that's really coming to a head right now with the cuts to SNAP, previously known as food stamps. And these benefits are going to be deeply slashed under Trump's new bill that has passed. And early numbers from the governor's office, take it for as you will, is Pritzker believes that 360,000 low-income people will be without their SNAP benefits when this bill really takes into effect. And that largely has to do with new rules requiring work. So people now 64 years and older receiving SNAP benefits will have to prove they've been working at least 20 hours a week. And that raises the working age from 34. And there are now exemptions only for parents of children younger than 14. So if your kid is 15, you're not getting SNAP benefits unless you're working 20 hours a week. And, on the surface, work requirements might seem like a common sense idea, but the people this is going to affect are the people most vulnerable to food insecurity. We're talking about veterans, people with undiagnosed mental illnesses that may have trouble holding down the job, parents working to keep their kids in school or watch their kids who can't meet those work requirements. It's going to add a lot of bureaucratic red tape too, that it's going to write a lot of people out of SNAP benefits. So early estimates are about 200,000 of people, because of these new work requirements, might lose their SNAP benefits. The rest of the people that may lose their SNAP benefits down the road result into the state having to backfill $750 million roughly to pay for the federal program. The loss shifts some of the costs from the federal government to the states, and Governor Pritzker is already out here saying, like, hey, we can't afford this. As you've seen in Springfield, there's already a real dearth right now to find funding to fill the 700 million plus that we need to keep public transit running. So we're getting into a situation now where state lawmakers are going to have to go to Springfield and decide whether we keep the Brown line running through Chicago or whether we help people pay for their food assistance, in which they're about to lose. And I think the most striking thing about all this to me, Kobe, is that while the work requirements go into effect now, the changes in funding won't take effect until after the 2026 midterm elections, which I think is a very clear and obvious move by Republicans, given they know the unpopularity of taking away people's food assistance.
Yeah, I think everything about this process has really highlighted all of the different mythos, narratives, the cruelty of this bill, the political calculations involved in it. You talk a little bit about the timing of this bill, right? Work requirements go in fast, but they want to wait until after the midterm elections. Some of the things in this bill don't go into effect until after this presidential election, because they want to be able to saddle Democrats, very similar to those 2016 era tax breaks, right? They want some of the consequences of these bills to happen either outside of an election window or to potentially happen under Democratic leadership. So they continue to build this narrative that it is Democratic policies that are stripping away the floor underneath middle income, low income Americans, which again, I think throughout this process, so many of us have watched as they have like meticulously created a bill that pushes through their like wealthy adjacent agenda while stripping so much in terms of food assistance, medical assistance, student loan funding, so much that the non-wealthy in our society rely on, whether it's for daily survival or a leg up in this rigged economy. They are cutting all of those off.
One person who works for a food pantry told me they're expecting lines outside the door to get longer and longer, and that's already a challenge given rising food costs and demand since the pandemic through the roof. And he just summed it up as saying the social safety net is getting smaller. It seems like death by 1,000 cuts in every direction. That they can. They're cutting into the federal social safety net. I wrote earlier about cuts to mental health and substance abuse services. These programs have often been summed up by Trump and people around him as rife of waste and fraud. It's our job as reporters, Kobe, to look at the people that this is actually affecting on the ground.
Yeah, I was reading through your reporting, and these cuts to SNAP are the largest since food stamps began in 1939 during the Great Depression, which I think is important because so many of these social safety net programs, so many of these institutions that have been created with the stated intent of kind of collective responsibility, so many of these were created during great strife, like the food insecurity of the Depression, the income insecurity of the Depression. These was created largely to benefit poorer white Americans. And yet the narrative is that, low income Black and brown families are mooching off of these programs and thus they need to be cut. Mac, I really appreciate all of your reporting covering this. We will drop a link in our show notes so that people can read more. And as Block Club and other outlets continue to break down and move through this bill, we will continue our coverage. Over to you, Miko. State, national, and some local elected officials are trying to create pathways to prohibit ICE agents from wearing face masks when they carry out these very dangerous, very chaotic raids in courthouses and workplaces. Can you talk a little bit about this push to unmask ICE officers who now don't seem like they have to identify themselves to the public and can kind of be dressed like mercenaries or kidnap groups when they carry out these operations?
I think, first of all, I would just like to call these raids kidnappings. I think these are state kidnappings. We are seeing them kidnap citizens and even undocumented people who are still fundamentally humans with ties and like community accountability, community responsibilities. I am of the mind that we have very little police oversight and accountability, but we do have some basics in terms of like, you can see their badge number, you can see their badge name, you can see their face. And when it comes to ICE, like, they're like, I could be anybody, which not only creates problems in terms of like if an officer, quote unquote, breaches protocol and figuring out who did what and like following the paper trail of accountability, but it also creates opportunities where people could feasibly come in and say, we're ICE, but they're actually just random vigilantes. And this is also happening at a time when they're covering their faces, they're appearing in street clothes. There's legislation being proposed right now to protect people's right to wear a medical face mask at work, in retail establishments, things like that. Because as of right now, like, people are being forced to remove their masks or they're facing, discrimination, firing, bullying, things like that. So it's legislation to say, hey, if somebody wants to wear a medical face mask, they're allowed to wear a medical face mask. You cannot force them to remove it. You cannot fire them. You cannot bully, harass them, whatever. And it's just for medical face masks. It's not for any other masks. And the people who are the most in favor of killing this legislation are the police and a lot of retailers who are being encouraged to adopt a lot of surveillance technology that is being combed by ICE. And a lot of the structural push for that's happening on the back end is coming from ICE, it's coming from DHS, it's coming from, and they're saying, retailers, this is gonna make you safer if you can see everybody's face and we can collect all these images and we can aggregate them in these databases so that we can locate whoever we want at any given time. we're seeing like an uptick in, dust storms and like other environmental hazards.
Shit, COVID is not gone. It's a thing we must live with and remain, like, keep getting vaccinated against,
Yeah.
right?
But also, it's not just gone, but like if, like I have friends who are undergoing chemo, like they cannot risk catching COVID. And so I think vulnerable populations, the government is not doing anything to protect them or to like offer safety nets. So what they're being told, this is on you, like you've got to protect yourself. So basic cheap thing, wear an N95, and now they're being told you got to take that off. You got to take that off. So you can't wear a medical face mask, but you can literally just dress up, say you're part of ICE, put on a mask. So there's two things on top of that I think are interesting, apart from like it's protecting ICE as they break laws and terrorize people. I think one, it feeds into this very interesting culture of fear. We talk about like America, like everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And I'm like, no, now we're encouraging a culture of fear to operate under the assumption that everybody is guilty until proven innocent. And that's why we need to see their faces all the time and know who's everywhere and who's doing what. I do think it's interesting that when we talk about like medical face masks, like it is very cultural. So like you see in other countries with like better healthcare systems than us, more like social safety nets for like catching a cold or needing to take time off work. Like Japan is a great example, or like China is a great example. Like people who like if you have the sniffles, you will put on a surgical mask before you board the train. And that's normal. That's very common. Like you'll see a lot of people in those cultures, like, or they might not have a cold, but they're aware that they're in spaces where the risk is higher. And they're like, I've got responsibilities. I've got to work. Like, I'm just going to wear a face mask so that I don't risk getting sick. So sometimes it's like, I'm protecting you from me. And sometimes it's I'm protecting me from you. And it's just a very simple way to honor the risk of like being human and like being in close proximity to one another and trying to make everyone safer. And so I just think it's so interesting that like it's a non-issue, it's very culturally common, and here it's treated with hostility as though like you are hiding something. And I think that speaks to such a deeper culture of distrust and animosity and fear instead of a sense of like solidarity and curiosity.
So the legislation that Miko wrote about is called the Protective Medical Equipment Freedom Act. It was introduced in the Illinois House but stalled this session. Meanwhile, congressional Democrats have proposed the No Secret Police Act, which would prohibit ICE from wearing face masks and require them to wear visible uniforms. We're going to keep you up to date as these pieces of legislation move along. Mac, I want to come back to you. After a couple deadly years in Illinois' Occupational Safety and Health Agency, or OSHA, citing Chicago's fire department for multiple violations in previous years, a new policy change has been announced with the stated intent of providing more oversight. Unfortunately, a lot of firefighters and union members are pushing back, criticizing that it could make things more dangerous. Can you explain what this policy shift is and why is it being proposed?
I'll take the latter of that first, Kobe, and I'll zoom out a bit for a second because these numbers really shocked me when I read them in our report from Noah Ashamow, a freelancer of Block Club. There were 4 fatal deaths of firefighters in 2023, and that was the most of any year for the Chicago Fire Department since 1998. And also during that time, between 2021 and 2023, we were the only municipality in the state to have experienced a firefighter fatality at all. So this is a problem that has really hit the Chicago Fire Department particularly hard. And one of those firefighter deaths was of a man who was fighting a fire, Lieutenant Kevin Ward, in a building near O'Hare Airport. And Kevin went into the building solo and he suffered from smoke inhalation. And there were 5 violations related to the fire department's response to that fire, and one of them mainly being that Kevin Ward had gone into the fire without clear lines of communications to firefighters on the outside. So OSHA is taking CFD policy, and they're really trying to force them into changes, and I don't want to get too into the weeds on this, but effectively the first responding team to a fire cannot go inside the building until a superintendent or a bigger boss shows up to kind of clear it out for safety.
Until a battalion chief arrives.
Yeah, until your big boss comes, you guys can't take the gloves off and put the masks on and go inside the building. So unless there's a visible victim in immediate danger, they said. So the fire union is out there complaining about this already, that pretty much it handcuffs them from being able to save people and fight fires before they go out of control. So there is still a lack of clarity whether this policy will be implemented anytime soon, but it seems like the fire department is fighting it, and OSHA, the federal agency, has the ability to fine the Chicago Fire Department if they don't implement it, and they're already doing that.
What's interesting here is I was reading through this. Like you said, I am no expert on this situation, but I immediately called my sister because she is a firefighter, given she is a firefighter in Georgia. But I first asked her about the incidents where people were running in by themselves. And she made it very clear. There is no policy that allows or requires or forces firefighters to run into a building alone. And so that is a violation that there should have never been just one firefighter. And in a few of these cases and a few of these fatalities, that was the case where somebody was running in by themselves. And what I'm hearing or reading from some of these union reps, some of these rank and file members, is that this proposed change where you need to wait on a battalion chief, you need to assign somebody on the first group of responders to kind of oversee things, that wouldn't directly fix the issue of one person running in without clear lines of communication or a second person. My sister was saying at least two people should be running in. And then when I said, okay, well, they're proposing people wait on the battalion chief to make a decision, she just went, again, with no skin in the Chicago firefighter game, goes, that doesn't make any sense. That person might not get there for 5, 10, 15 minutes. She was like, I don't know if that's actually going to solve the problem at hand. I understand they say people can run in if there's clear victims or if you get word someone's trapped. But she was like, you don't always know that, or there aren't always clear signs. Sometimes you can't assess the situation fully from outside, and maybe waiting for a battalion chief to get there, she felt like would slow her job down and slow her team's job down and make people less safe.
I think you did a nice job there of summing up the critiques, Jacoby. What OSHA is really trying to get the fire department to do, this first line of unit that gets to the scene before the battalion chief, they're in charge of defensive operations. So they still have something they can do. They can secure the area around it. They can get their rigs, hoses going. What they can't do is offensive operations, which is going into the fire, without the clear, direct viewpoint of the battalion chief saying, go ahead, we're here, you can do that. The fact of reality is I don't think there's any real easy solution here, but the fact on the matter is that there were 4 firefighter fatalities in 2023. We are running into situations where firefighters are running in and suffering from smoke inhalation, or they're running in and the building hasn't been secured and cleared and maybe a roof collapse on them. So these deaths are coming. These fires are burning hotter and spreading faster given the way we build furniture and homes these days. So this just seems like an initial foray into solving the problem, but it seems like there's a lot more that needs to be done too.
Miko, it looks like a story that the Chicago Reader, Invisible Institute, and some other colleagues have been working on. Is starting to look deeper into Chicago Police Department's merit-based promotion list. Apparently, this is something that started in the 90s to make sure more diverse police officers were being promoted. But now some 20, 30 years in, this list seems to be one of a lack of transparency, and people are not really sure how decisions are being made. Can you kind of catch me up on this? Because I was not really familiar with the process by which people get promoted in CPD.
In an era where we have really had a push as a culture, but especially in Chicago, I would say even in the last 10 years, we need more police accountability. We need more police oversight. And it seemed like we were making some headway in that, but now as there is a broad cultural drift towards authoritarianism and top-down hierarchy, and so people are having valid questions about how is this happening? How are you deciding this? How are you making sure that you're actually rewarding cops who are passing the bare minimum threshold, and they're actually, cops have a right to privacy about when we promote them, it's none of your business if we promote them anyway. I am subject to that cop's behavior, and I'm paying for it. And when those cops misbehave, I'm also paying for that. So I do think it is my business. As a tax-paying citizen of Chicago, I do think that's my business.
And again, this was implemented in the mid 90s. It wasn't until 2017 when then Chief Eddie Johnson released the list of the officers who were promoted between 2006 and 2017. That is the only and last time that such a list was released. And not only, as you say, are there multiple sides to this, but I think on both sides, on one, Chicagoans have less transparency about the people who are being promoted inside of the police department. And two, even cops are arguing this merit list has not done exactly what it was intended to do to create a more diversified police force. So you failed on both accounts, it seems, to create a more diversified leadership pool in CPD and have also created a less transparent system. We will drop links to all of the stories we have talked about in our show notes. We end every single episode the exact same way, and that is with some good news. Mac, I'm gonna start with you because I was just at my mom's house over the weekend, and I swear, I was like, I feel like I've seen more fireflies today or over the last couple of days than I have in the last couple of summers, and I felt like that was something just I was experiencing. But your good news says it's not isolated to just me.
Yeah, man, we're seeing more fireflies everywhere this time of year, early summer. And that's thanks to favorable conditions for them to survive. So we had a mild winter, which many of their larvae, which these fireflies that start as little bugs on the ground, eating stuff in the soil, they didn't freeze through the winter. And then we had a wet spring, which made the ground very fertile of all the things they like to eat. So a lot of them survived more so than other years. And now they're up in the air, lighting up Chicago, keeping the lights on. I spoke to the Illinois State official entomologist, which I didn't even know we had an official state entomologist, but this is like the guy in charge of studying insects, I guess. And he told me that, yeah, it appears they do appear more abundant across the city and the state this year. I had another expert I spoke to who kind of backed him up on that. So yeah, I mean, I'm seeing it in my own front and backyard, Jacoby. These fireflies, I think they're pretty good neighbors, man, because you can catch them, you can let them go easily. They keep the lights on for you. They don't ruin or eat stuff in your gardens that you don't want there anyway. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see them. Kids love them, man. So just enjoy them while you can, because not every year we get fireflies like this.
I feel like people have the least amount of beef with the firefly, right? No one wants to step into an ant mound. We all smacking away at mosquitoes, right? The proliferation of like the cockroaches and stuff and pests picking up annoys all of us. But I don't know that many people who see the fireflies popping out and go, "Ugh, get them up out of here. Get them out my face."
No, fireflies remind us of the magic of the universe.
Oh my God, the whimsy of childhood. It does something to you. They are very, very special insects to us.
I hate flying bugs because I'll sit outside in the summertime till my own detriment, and I'll wind up just like covered in bug bites left and right. But these things don't bite you, man. And there's a fun fact why. They light up because they tell predators that they shouldn't eat them because they're poisonous. So, and because they have this kind of natural warning system against predators eating them, they don't really need to be super flighty. They don't need to go around jetting back and forth from things and being a nuisance. So because they have the light up thing, they can kind of just chill out and hang out with us.
Yeah, this just literally one of the coolest things to see in the sky. Just a blinking ass bug. Miko, over to you. What is your good news for CityCast Chicago today?
Okay, my good news is about myself.
Yes, come on. We love some personal good news.
Okay, so I'm really into strength training. I have been lifting, I think I started in 2018.
Come on.
I've done it off and on for years, but I'm pretty serious about it now. And first of all, like I was a woman when I started training, and even in the time of when I started training versus now, I think it's like really exciting how I've seen gym culture shift over the years. And I see a lot more women gender nonconforming people, openly queer people. I am seeing a lot more of them in the weight room, and that really excites me. But the weight area is not always a friendly place towards women or gender nonconforming people or, openly queer people. And in recent, I am a trans non-binary person. I'm gender nonconforming for people who cannot see me, they're just hearing my voice. But it's always kind of, an interesting mixed bag of being in a space that like is so focused on your body and like can be, a very binary space because oftentimes the locker rooms are like male female. Not too many gyms offer like a truly neutral space for changing. Some do. 3 real big gym wins for me recently. One, there were these 2 big beefcake guys and they were fighting in the gym, like straight up like voices raised, chest puffs, like yelling over this bench, and I de-escalated the fight and I was like, yeah, you broke up the gym bros. Way to go.
I love that for you.
Which also, I used to be a very high conflict person. So to now just be like, come on, guys, put on your grown up pants. And like to just be like, we're going to do this. And I was like, yeah, big win. You are totally one of the dudes. And then the other day I was like lifting, and I'm doing my thing. And this like older man comes up to me and he's like, excuse me, I hate to interrupt. Is there any chance you can teach my son how to squat? You just seem very confident and like you know what you're doing. He really wants to learn how to squat and I don't know how to do it. Can you just teach him? And I was like, okay. Like, you think I look very confident? Cool. So to be recognized as somebody who's visibly not a cis man and to be like, you seem like you would be good at telling a man how to do this. I'm like, yes. And then yesterday I made a new gym friend and
you just having gym wins all week, G.
The gym is like my church and my playground. Like, sometimes things go wrong there, but mostly we're just there to have fun and have a great time. And that's what we do. But yeah, yesterday I made a new gym friend and it was just like, we were like swapping on machines and we started chatting and I was just like, dude, your arms are sick. Like your arms are beautiful. I love them. And he's like, I will totally show you. If you think these are dope arms, I will show you how to do this. And I was like, this man is going to show me how to get the arms of my dreams. Yes. And so now we're going to go work out together. He's going to show me how to have beautiful arms like his.
Come on. Someone showing you a great arm regimen, you helping somebody with squats, you breaking up fights, like every version of these stories is just like bringing better energy and positivity to this gym. I want you to know you were a catalyst for that. I appreciate you for sharing this story with us.
I love the gym.
I am going to close our good news out and I want y'all to get a pen, paper, or your phone, obviously, because who the hell got pen and paper on them, and take down some of these events, y'all. It's going to be a busy weekend on the South Side, but I'm going to start off with some events not on the South Side. Remember the Barrio Arts Fest? We talked about that in our guide to July. It's kicking off this weekend at the National Puerto Rican Museum in Humboldt Park. You've also got the Edgewater Greek Fest up at St. Andrew Greek Orthodox. But as I said, it's going to be a very, very busy weekend on the South Side, y'all. We got Passport Vibe Street Festival at the Promontory tomorrow from 12 to 10. Culture Connect, food, live music, networking at Boxville from 1 to 4. Obviously, you got the Chosen Few Picnic and Festival in Jackson Park tomorrow as well. But then something that I've been looking forward to all month long, and I'm glad it's finally kicking off. The Active Recording is an Act of Love. The 20th anniversary celebration of the Southside Home Movie Project opens up today, and it doesn't close until August. And so please make some time for that. We will drop links to all of these events in our show notes. And if you want to get a head start on your weekend, head over to chicago.citycast.fm and check out our events calendar. Trust me, we got something in there for everybody. Please join me in thanking our wonderful guest today from the Chicago Reader, Miko Caparel. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And from Block Club Chicago, Mac Liederman, thank you for stopping through, my friend.
Thanks, man. I'll see you on the softball field.
Before we get out of here, I want to give a huge thank you to our new CityCast Chicago neighbor, Sarah B. I took some time yesterday and I read what you wrote, and I appreciate you. I'm glad you enjoyed your Sean Michelle's. I'm glad that your son enjoyed it. I'm glad you got to meet the owner. You giving me the scoop that they opening up another spot, which is always great to hear. You know, I'm glad that we are able to give you what we hope we're able to give not only our CityCast neighbors, but the people who make time for the podcast and the newsletter, which is feeling a little more connected to the city amongst all of their responsibilities, amongst all of their challenges, and amongst all of their competing media. And so I'm glad that you found us. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time and becoming a CityCast neighbor. You can get like Sarah B and become a CityCast Chicago neighbor by visiting membership.citycast.fm. In the meantime, in between time, join me in thanking the people who make all of this possible. Our executive producer, Simone Alisea, our producer, Michelle Navarro, our Hey Chicago newsletter editor, Emmy Mack, our social media manager, Rick Homuth. The music we all love is from Sam Thousand, All the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. Hey, if you enjoy us, please share us with your friends and family. Be back here bright and early on Monday. We're going to talk to you then. Peace.